You're listening to a special bonus episode of the Jacob Valk Show. He's breaking down the latest and greatest in sports as only he can. Follow him on Twitter at RealJacobValk. Here he is, Jacob Valk.
NBA fans, welcome to my 2021-22 NBA season preview here on the Jacob Valk Show. I am the Jacob Valk, except no imitation. I'm going to go conference by conference, team by team, breaking down where I think everyone's going to finish. I'll give you my NBA Finals pick. It's going to be a lot of fun. I'll start with the East. And you may call me a homer for this, but with Kevin Durant and James Harden in tow, how can I not pick the Brooklyn Nets? You want to tell me Kyrie not being there means that the Nets aren't going to finish in first place? Two things. Firstly, I don't think Kyrie is going to miss the entire season. I don't think he's going to get vaccinated, and I think he's an idiot for not being vaccinated, but I do think that the New York City restrictions will change. Eric Adams, most likely the next mayor of New York City, basically intimated that the restrictions will change. If nothing else, all you have to do is carve out an exemption for Major League Baseball, the NHL, the NBA, Major League Soccer, and you're set. It's okay to have a professional sports exemption. You want to tell me that's unfair to the nurses that were fired over not being vaccinated, the teachers, your average Joe? Yeah, it is. I'm not saying it's not, but for years we've carved out exemptions for professional sports leagues. We've basically allowed these sports leagues to function as monopolies in this country for decades. They're exempt from antitrust lawsuits. The famous NFL, USFL lawsuit. The NFL had a monopoly. That's what the jury found. But they did nothing about it. They gave the USFL like $9. Exemptions are carved out all the time for sports. So I do believe that Kyrie will play at least one game for the Nets this year. Also, the Nets do have the depth necessary to survive his absence. Joe Harris, Patty Mills, Blake Griffin, LaMarcus Aldridge, Paul Millsap, Nick Claxton, Javon Carter, Cam Thomas, Bruce Brown. The Nets will be fine. Quite frankly, even if Kyrie misses the whole season, I'd still feel comfortable putting the Nets at number 1. I do think they're better than the Milwaukee Bucks. Nothing against the Bucks. It's just, you saw it in the playoff series. If the Nets were 100%, they beat the Bucks and they probably win the NBA title. Are the Nets going to be at 100% if Kyrie is out for the whole year? Yes and no. Yes, in the sense that he's not a rotational piece, so it's not like someone would move up. I mean, someone's moving up for him now. A guy like Javon Carter's probably going to get more minutes. A guy like Cam Thomas is probably going to get more minutes. But it's not like you're losing anything from the regular season to the present. You were without Kyrie before. You're still without him. You're net neutral. No pun intended. That's my point. You're net neutral. Again, no pun intended. So while I think the Bucks are great, Giannis, Middleton, Jrue Holiday, I don't see them beating the Nets. I think they'll be great. I think they'll have a great season. I think they're the second best team in the East. And admittedly, I did toy with putting them ahead of the Nets. I'm going to stick with Nets 1, Bucks 2. At 3, I have the 76ers. I understand all the question marks around Ben Simmons, but he's still there, so I have to assume that he's going to stay there. I just don't see a team trading for him. The only way it would have made sense would have been Kyrie for Simmons, but Woj pretty much put the kibosh on that. Simmons for Lillard doesn't seem like it's going to happen. It just seems like Simmons is stuck with the 76ers. So with him, Joel Embiid, Seth Curry, Danny Green, and Tobias Harris comprising a starting 5 that overall rivals any starting 5 in the league. It's just when your second best player can't score consistently, your ceiling is limited. That's why he'd be such a perfect fit on the Nets. As a secondary option, Simmons isn't good. As a tertiary option, Simmons would be amazing. At 4, I have the Atlanta Hawks. A team that's just going to get better and better. A team that really goes 10 deep. Trae Young, Bogdan Bogdanovic, DeAndre Hunter, John Collins, Clint Capella, DeLon Wright, Kevin Huerter, Cam Reddish, Danilo Gallinari, and Gorgie Dieng. They're really one of the deeper teams in the NBA. You saw how talented they are when they beat a superior Knicks team and a superior Sixers team in the playoffs. Would it really stun you if the Hawks went on a big run this year? It wouldn't stun me. I don't see it happening. But they have the talent to go very far. The sky's the limit for this Hawks team in the near future. At 5, I have the Knicks, one of the most improved teams in the NBA, adding Kemba Walker, adding Evan Fournier, bringing Derrick Rose back, bringing Nerlens Noel back, bringing Alec Burks back. With Tom Thibodeau still there and Leon Rose running things, if you're a Knicks fan, you've got to be really happy about your future. There are finally adults in the room. It's okay to be optimistic about your team, Knicks fans. I'm not saying you're going to make a ton of noise in the playoffs, but the ship is pointed in the right direction. That's something that I haven't said about the Knicks maybe ever. The one thing I would caution the Knicks about is you're going to be tempted to make a splashy trade to mortgage the future for a disgruntled star. Don't do that unless it really makes sense. Do the Knicks need another star if they're going to be looked at as a legitimate title contender? Yeah, Julius Randle can't do it by himself. Derrick Rose helps, but he's not going to win MVP again. If the trade makes sense, do it. But don't mortgage the future. Fortunately for Knicks fans, I don't think they will. Speaking of improved teams, the most improved team of the offseason will finish in 6th in the Eastern Conference. The Chicago Bulls. Adding Lonzo Ball, DeMar DeRozan, and Alex Caruso to a core of Zach LaVine, Kobe White, Nikola Vujovic, and Patrick Williams, who has upside, makes the Bulls a really scary team. They're a little top-heavy. Once you get past those guys, it kind of falls off. But the Bulls will do enough to make the playoffs this year and avoid the play-in tournament. Speaking of the play-in tournament, that's where we are now in the East. And I'll go with a team that was eliminated in the play-in tournament. Yes, they won one of their games, but they also lost one of those games, so they were eliminated in the play-in tournament. I'm talking about the Indiana Pacers. They destroyed the Hornets, only to then get destroyed by the Wizards. The thing with the Pacers is they're just very injury-prone. They've got a lot of players with checkered injury histories. Malcolm Brogdon, who just got a big extension, has an injury history. Karis LeVert has an injury history. TJ Warren has an injury history. Those are 3 of your starters that you're going to need to contend with missing a sizable percentage of games. I mean, the Pacers have good depth, don't get me wrong, but they don't have great depth. And there's no superstar on that team. Even though TJ Warren was a superstar in the bubble, he's really not a superstar. The Pacers have a bunch of really good players, none of them great. They have a great coach in Rick Carlisle. I love that move, would have loved him on the Nets. I like the Pacers. I think they'll be in the playoffs. I just don't see them making a ton of noise. At 8, I have the Miami Heat. That may be low to some people, but let me tell you why. Firstly, Kyle Lowry isn't getting any younger. Okay, he's 35. It's very possible that he falls off a cliff this year. Victor Oladipo has an injury history. Same thing with Jimmy Butler. I'm just not sold on the Heat. I see the talent. I see the potential. I just feel like a lot of things would need to go right for them in order to make a lot of noise. Like, what's their ceiling? 5? I don't see them being better than the Hawks. I just don't see that happening. The Knicks? If things go wrong for the Knicks, if the league figures out their defense, if Thibodeau wears out his welcome, I could see it. If the Bulls' new additions don't work, if the Pacers get bitten by the injury bug, yeah, I could see the Heat at 5. But again, everything needs to go right. See, the thing with the East is you've got a lot of teams vying for very few spots. You've got a bunch of definites. I feel like the Nets, Bucks, Sixers, and Hawks are all definite. I don't think there's a universe where those teams miss the playoffs. But once you get past those teams, it's a crapshoot. I can make a case for some teams that I didn't even mention yet being the 5 seed in the East. Like, I'll do it for the Boston Celtics right now. Because I have them at 9. Here's the case for them to be 5. Let's say Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown absolutely ball out. Like, Tatum puts up 30 points a game. Brown puts up 25 points a game. Let's say Dennis Schroeder has a really good season. He's motivated because everyone ripped him for having to settle for the 1-year deal after turning down the extension with the Lakers. Let's say Ime Udoka becomes a really good coach, because I think he will be a good coach. Let's say Al Horford has a renaissance being back in Boston. There's a world where the Celtics finish 5, but I have them finishing 9. Why? Because I'm not sold on their bench. But if their young guns ball out, like Peyton Pritchard, Romeo Langford, Aaron Nesmith, I could see them being higher than 9. It's very tough with this cluster of teams. And there's one more team in this cluster, the Washington Wizards. Bradley Beal seems content to ride it out with the Wizards. They did bring in Spencer Dinwiddie. I'm a big Deni Avdija fan. I think he's going to have a really good sophomore year. He's a sleeper for most improved player. I like Kyle Kuzma a lot. I like Montrezl Harrell. The thing is, though, I don't know how much Dinwiddie's going to play after missing the whole year with that devastating injury. And is Bradley Beal really going to have another season where he averages over 30 points a game? I don't think so. I think a lot of things would need to go right for the Wizards to finish higher than 10. Not impossible, just not probable. At 11, I'm going to go with the Toronto Raptors. I understand that they lost Kyle Lowry, but realize they still have Fred VanVleet. They brought in Goran Dragic. They still have OG Anunoby. They still have Pascal Siakam, even though there are trade rumors surrounding him. Look, it's not a deep team. It's a team that's kind of hard to get excited about. But they have some good players. They have a really good coach in Nick Nurse. It's going to be tough sledding for Raptors fans this year, but I don't think they'll be horrible. The Charlotte Hornets are my pick for the 12th spot. You may be thinking that's a little low. They finished 10th last year. Now you have them missing the play-in tournament. That's tough. See, here's the thing, though. A lot of things went right for the Hornets last year. Terry Rozier put up over 20 points a game. Gordon Hayward put up over 19 points a game. Devontae Graham put up over 14 points a game. LaMelo Ball put up over 15 points a game. PJ Washington put up over 12 points a game. And Malik Monk put up over 11 points a game. Now, realize, Devontae Graham is a Pelican. Malik Monk is a Laker. You're going to rely a lot on guys like Ish Smith and James Bouknight to make up for that lost production. I don't see that working. I don't like their centers. Mason Plumlee, Vernon Carey, Kai Jones, and Nick Richards really don't excite me. I see the Hornets taking a big step back this year. At 13, I have the Cleveland Cavaliers. A team that's just weird. A team that I just don't think has the right puzzle pieces in place. It's like they took a few pieces from Puzzle A, a few pieces from Puzzle B, and a few pieces from Puzzle C, and they're trying to fit square pegs into round holes. That's not going to work. Darius Garland and Colin Sexton can't play together. I'm very skeptical about the Evan Mobley, Lauri Markkanen, Kevin Love, and Jarrett Allen front court. Isaac Okoro needs to take a big step forward for the Cavaliers to be relevant. I just don't see this working. I feel like the Cavaliers really need to shake things up. Pick a direction and go with it. Because I feel like they've got a bunch of different people trying to pull them in different directions. Are you going to go front court heavy? Are you going to go back court heavy? The Cavaliers just confused me. At 14, I have the Orlando Magic. A team that you can actually get excited about. Like, if you see the Orlando Magic are playing, you may think to yourself, hey, you know what? They have some exciting young players. I may watch them. Let me see guys like Jalen Suggs and Markelle Fultz and Jonathan Isaac and Wendell Carter and Mo Bamba. Look, I believe that the Magic have the young core necessary to be relevant in a couple years. They blew everything up at the trade deadline. They traded Aaron Gordon. They traded Nikola Vucevic. And they traded Evan Fournier. But they got some good pieces back. For Vucevic, they got Wendell Carter. He's a good young center who just signed a big extension. For Gordon, you got RJ Hampton, Gary Harris, and a first rounder. That's pretty good. You gave away Fournier, which didn't make a lot of sense, but hey, you got some good pieces. You've got a good core in place. In a couple years, I could see the Magic becoming relevant again. They have the ship pointed in the right direction. They're just miles away from that destination. That's the thing. And finishing in last place in the East, I have the Detroit Pistons. There's literally no one on that team that excites me except for Cade Cunningham. You want to tell me Jeremy Grant? No, I'm sorry. Jeremy Grant doesn't excite me. Jeremy Grant put up big numbers for a bad team. Someone's got to score. I'm not saying he's a terrible player, but he's not the second coming of Joe Dumars. Build around Cunningham. You want to incorporate Grant into that for now, okay. You want to incorporate Josh Jackson into that for now, okay. But if that's your big three, you're not going to make any noise. The Pistons will have another very high pick this year. That brings us to the Western Conference, where, no surprise, I have the LA Lakers finishing in the top spot. At this very moment, with Kyrie Irving out, make no mistake about it, the Los Angeles Lakers have the best roster in the NBA. LeBron, AD, Westbrook, Melo, Monk, Ellington, Howard, Nunn, Rondo, etc., etc. You want to tell me you're skeptical of the Westbrook and LeBron fit? That's fine. I think they're going to kill each other too. But I don't see anyone else in the West challenging them. At the end of the day, great players usually are able to figure it out. And I think the Lakers will be able to figure it out. At 2, I have the Utah Jazz. It wouldn't surprise me if the Jazz finished in the top spot. If LeBron gets hurt, if AD gets hurt, if that old roster gets hurt, yeah, the Jazz can overtake them. I mean, the Jazz finished with the best record in the NBA last year. And they're bringing back basically the same team. It's just hard to bet against Russell Westbrook, LeBron James, and Anthony Davis. I like the Jazz a lot. I think they're a great team. I think they're a very underrated team. But I do think they're going to finish behind the Lakers. It wouldn't stun me if they didn't, but I think they will, unfortunately. At 3, I have the Golden State Warriors. Klay Thompson is back. Obviously, you have Steph. You've got James Wiseman back. You've got Andrew Wiggins. You have Draymond. Jonathan Kuminga, I think, is going to be a home run pick. You brought back Iguodala. I overrated the Warriors last year. I think I had them finishing 2. They finished 8. This year, with Thompson back, I have them at 3. At 4, I have the Phoenix Suns, a team that I'm just very low on. Last year, they feasted on injuries. And this year, they're going to do it again. The Lakers weren't 100% when the Suns beat them. The Nuggets weren't 100% when the Suns swept them. The Clippers weren't 100% when the Suns beat them. They went up against a 100% Bucks team. They lost in 6 games. Now you look at the West. Jamal Murray's still hurt. Kawhi Leonard is still hurt. Kristaps Porzingis has an injury history. Damian Lillard's a question mark. I don't know if he's going to finish the season in Portland or not. I see the Suns taking advantage of that again. Give them credit for taking advantage of it. I'm not saying you take away the banner from their rafters, but I think it's noteworthy. Now, I do have one of those teams affected by injury at 5. It's the Denver Nuggets. Jamal Murray is still without a timetable. It seems like he's going to be out for a really long time. As great as Nikola Jokic is, and as great as Michael Porter Jr. is, I can't put the Nuggets any higher than 5. If Murray was 100%, I'd easily put them ahead of the Suns, maybe even ahead of the Warriors. But with Murray out, I have to put them at 5. And at 6, I have the LA Clippers. The Kawhi Leonard injury is just devastating. You know he's going to be out for most of the season. He should be back in time for the playoffs. And you know that he's capable of winning playoff series by himself. But for the regular season, I really see the Clippers struggling. Also, how great can a Paul George-led team be? We saw it in the Western Conference Finals. It just doesn't work. At 7, I have the Memphis Grizzlies. I could see them finishing ahead of the Clippers. The thing is, though, the Clippers do have a little bit more star power. With Paul George, Reggie Jackson, and Eric Bledsoe. Who do the Grizzlies have? Ja Morant, Jaren Jackson Jr., and Steven Adams? Give me the Clippers. I like the Grizzlies. I think they're a good team. They're an exciting team. I like watching them play. I think Taylor Jenkins is one of the better coaches in the NBA. We don't talk about him as much as we should, but he's really, really good. I see the Grizzlies making the playoffs. I see them finishing in 7. It wouldn't stun me if they finished at 5. I just see them at 7. At 8, I have the Portland Trailblazers, a team that's doing everything in their power to keep Damian Lillard happy. They brought in Larry Nance Jr. They didn't blow things up. They're trying really hard to build a core around him. The thing is, though, that ship has sailed. I just don't see the Blazers doing much with Damian Lillard. You had that opportunity. You were just never able to seize upon it. Also, it wouldn't surprise me if Lillard didn't finish the season with the Trailblazers. We're going to hear those trade rumors all throughout the year. At 9, I have the Dallas Mavericks. You may be thinking to yourself, what on earth are you doing? The Mavericks are being picked by some as a sleeper for the NBA title. But a one-man team isn't going to make a lot of noise in the NBA. Okay, it's just not. It needs some help. As great as Luka is, and I love Luka. I love watching him play. He's one of my favorite players in the NBA to watch. But when your second best player is an injury-prone Kristaps Porzingis, when your third best player is Tim Hardaway Jr., you're just not going to make a lot of noise. I think the Mavericks are being incredibly overrated The loss of Rick Carlisle is really going to hurt that team. I understand that they brought in Jason Kidd, sexy hire, Hall of Famer, former Maverick, totally get it. We said the same thing about him with the Nets. Kidd's not a great coach. Rick Carlisle is better. Also, not for nothing, Mark Cuban really needs to get a hold of things with the Mavericks. He seems to be trusting the wrong people. He's bringing in people who really don't know a lot about the NBA into high-ranking roles. Cuban used to be a great owner. Now, I don't know what he's doing. He's too focused on Shark Tank. He's got to get his act together. It's just that simple. At 10, I have the Minnesota Timberwolves. Maybe a weird team to put at 10, but no other team really excites me. I mean, I see a world where Karl Anthony Towns, D'Angelo Russell, Anthony Edwards, and Malik Beasley just ball out. They're a very top-heavy team. They don't have a great bench. And yeah, they have some question marks. Gerson Rosas was forced out. They're getting a new owner. There's a lot of chaos happening with the Timberwolves right now, but they have the talent necessary to get into the play-in tournament. I don't think they'll make any noise when they're there, but I do think they'll be in the play-in tournament. At 11, I have the New Orleans Pelicans. The only reason why I have the Pelicans at 11 is because Zion Williamson had right foot surgery. And he's not going to be ready for a while. That's going to limit the Pelicans' effectiveness. Yes, they have Brandon Ingram. Yes, they have Devontae Graham. Yes, they have Jonas Valanciunas. But without Zion, their ceiling is low. I don't know how long Zion's going to be out. It's very possible that he gets hurt again. He's a big man with foot problems. That scares me. If Zion was to play 82 games, the Pelicans are a playoff team. And I'd probably put them as high as 8. But with the question mark hovering over Zion, I've got to put them at 11. At 12, I have the Sacramento Kings. A team with some exciting players. I like De'Aaron Fox. I like Tyrese Halliburton. And I like Buddy Hield. But it's the Kings. They're that team that until they're good, I can't say they're going to be good. They have the longest active playoff drought in the NBA. They haven't made the playoffs since 2006. They haven't won a round in the playoffs since 2004. I got news for you. Mike Bibby, Meta World Peace, Peja Stojakovic, and Brad Miller are long gone. I'll be honest with you, I don't even remember seeing the Kings in the playoffs. That's how long it's been. I mean, I remember the 2002 Western Conference Finals. Because if the referees really didn't help the Lakers out, the Kings play the Nets in the NBA Finals, and the Nets have a great chance of winning. But that was 20 years ago. Until the Kings become good, I can't say they're going to be good. It's just that simple. At 13, I have the San Antonio Spurs. A really bad team a team with no stars, a team that you're not going to go out of your way to watch. Greg Popovich just needs to retire. Because all staying with the Spurs is doing is hurting his career winning percentage. How's this for a stat? Before the pandemic started, Greg Popovich only had one losing season as a head coach. It was 96-97. He didn't even start that year as the head coach of the Spurs. Bob Hill did. Then Popovich hired himself and stayed in that role. Now the Spurs have back-to-back losing seasons. There's no way they're making the playoffs this year. You want to tell me that Popovich wants to break Don Nelson's record for most wins by a coach? I could see that. If that's the case, then this is Popovich's last year, because he only has 25 more wins to go. The Spurs are going to win at least 25 games. They're not going to be good, but they're not going to be that terrible. How tragic would it be if they didn't, though? How tragic would it be if the Spurs only won like 24 games? Could you see Popovich doing something like, I'm going to start the year as Spurs head coach, then when I get 2 more wins, I'm going to resign, and person X is going to take over? I don't think Popovich would do that, but if he falls short of 1335, which is the number of wins that Don Nelson has, I can't say it's out of the realm of possibility. Also, it wouldn't surprise me if Becky Hammon became head coach after Pop. Or Tim Duncan. But I could totally see Hammon in that role, and I think she'd do a great job. At 14, I have the Oklahoma City Thunder. They're in asset gathering mode. They're in rebuild mode. Shea is going to get like 25 to 30 points a game. He's going to go off. The only reason why I have the Thunder at 14 and not 15 is because the Thunder have Shea. The Houston Rockets, the last team, don't have anyone close to Shea. I like Jalen Green. I think he's going to be a really good player. Not Shea yet. Eric Gordon's a really good player. I could see the Rockets trading him. Christian Wood is a really good player. I could see the Rockets trading him. It's impossible to get behind the Houston Rockets. The Thunder at least have some young guns that you know are going to be there for a while. The Rockets only have Green. That's it. That's why I have the Thunder at 14 and the Rockets at 15. But now it's time for my NBA Finals pick. Can I get a drum roll, please? It depends. If Kyrie Irving comes back and plays for the Nets will win the NBA title. If he doesn't, the Lakers will win the NBA title. I'm sorry, I can't give you a firm pick. The Kyrie variable is just too stark. If you put a gun to my head and said make a pick, I do think that Kyrie will play at least one game for the Nets this year. I do think there will be a sports exemption made. So in 7 games, I'll say the Nets. But it wouldn't surprise me if it was the Lakers. It just wouldn't. It wouldn't surprise me if I was wrong about the exemption. This whole thing drives me nuts. If Kyrie Irving costs the Nets an NBA title, I'm going to lose my mind. Tomorrow night, you're going to get my Brooklyn Nets season preview. I'm going to go player by player, breaking down what you need to know about them. Regular episodes of The Jacob Valk Show come your way every weekday afternoon. Until next time, I'm Jacob Valk, and always remember, if you disagree with me, you're wrong.